Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. Today, I'm going to be doing my VCT Pacific power rankings and predictions for week 2. I mean, these teams played a lot better than you saw in pretty much any other region, at least in terms of Americas, and then this first week of EMEA so far, or this first day of EMEA that I've been watching today. Like, good lord, some of these games, specifically the Karma Core BBL one, are awful. Um, But yeah, I think Pacific was easily the best region. Now, that doesn't mean that there aren't some bad teams that we'll talk about in this video, but I think the general level of Pacific is a little bit higher than the rest of the regions as of right now, which I think is a good thing. I don't know, maybe if the top teams are better than the top teams in EMEA and Americas. I do think, I mean, obviously T1 is on that level because they did win Bangkok, but I do think Vitality could potentially pass them up. G2 could potentially pass them up, depending on how the meta kind of evolves within the next couple months leading up to Toronto. But yeah, if you guys enjoy, make sure to leave a like, subscribe. It really helps me out. Also, stay to the end to see all my predictions. Yeah, I talked about the fantasy league in my last video, so I won't talk about it in this one. But if you're interested in my fantasy team, because I made a video on that, you can go check the America's Power Rankings out that I just uploaded yesterday. Also, if you're curious about how I would rank some of these, what's it called? Pacific players, like specific players against the rest of the region, you can go check out my player rankings, which is on my Twitter. Link to that is in the description. I just posted those a couple days ago. So you can go check that out, as well as my EMEA one should be coming pretty soon. And yeah, without further ado, let's get right into it. All right, so we'll start with who I think most people would agree are the bottom two teams, but I definitely think they're better than some of the bottom teams in the other regions. We'll start with Zeta, who I have staying at number 12. They were at number 12 last week, and I didn't really feel like they did enough to move up. And even though I think they might have looked better this week than the next team, I think they'll have to prove it again. So yeah, Zeta, they definitely looked a bit better than they did at kickoff. Still not horrible, but not great at all, really. I think this team can get some upsets over some teams that are worse than T1. Um, I do feel like overall, with their one map win on Split, they just had a really, really good idea of what T1 wanted to do, and that was very good for them. But I also think T1, just as a team, was kind of underperforming in that game. And if they played that game again, I don't think Zeta would win that map, personally. Maybe T1 would get rid of Split or something. Or, I mean, if they literally just played another map of Split right now, I think T1 would play better and probably close that game out. So, overall, I was kind of impressed by Zeta. There were no real individuals that were like super impressive to me though, which was kind of unfortunate. It was kind of just a overall like having a better read, which I think is good for CLC. Then we'll have Team Secret at number 11. I did not really like these role swaps very much. Like, Envy looked good on Sentinel, but I don't think he looked great. There was definitely some mistakes in there that I didn't love overall, but it wasn't terrible. Jeremy's doing his normal regular season thing of being pretty decent. Wild Oreo was not good on any of the maps, really. Like Haven and Fracture, I don't think he was very good. And then Pearl, like, it would not shock me if Wild Oreo got like 80% of his kills with a sniper that game. Like, he had like 3K with a chamber deagle on a pistol, and then I think the rest of it was with outlaws and ops. So, I mean, he was good at the outlawing and opping, but the rifling on all of the agents he played was not very good. And then with the last two guys, apparently 2GE is IGLing for this team, which, like, at this point, why is Jesse on this team? Just pick up another initiator player. It really can't be that difficult. I mean, this team needs to make changes, personally. I think Zeta is a little bit further away from making a change necessarily because they do have a lot of young talent. Um, but yeah, I don't understand what Secret's doing on their roster. And yeah, what the hell's going on? Like, the 2GE IGLing didn't look that bad. It wasn't good, obviously. There's a reason that they're in 11th, but it wasn't horrendous by any means. So I won't knock them too much for necessarily swapping the IGLs. It's just more of like a like why are we doing this at all? It just doesn't make sense to me really. But overall, I mean, I did see some stuff about how like Filipino players are gonna or would struggle to get visas and getting like wanting to change that would kind of be a struggle. But like I get like that is reasonable, but like just kind of say that you're gonna pick somebody up kind of thing. I don't know. That's just weird to me. And then now onto my next tier of teams that I am kind of confused why they're bad necessarily. Like some of them they definitely have reasons to why they're bad, but they shouldn't be with the amount of talent on their rosters. So we're gonna start with RRQ, who I think some people would say this is a little low because I do think Jemkin is looking really nice on the Yoru. He's been very good this year for RRQ, while kind of having a disappointing 2024. Um, but he's starting to look even better, kind of flex it a bit more over to the Yoru, even though I think he did play some at kickoff, but definitely looking a lot better. Cushy, I think, looked very good those first two maps, and then started playing the KO on map 3 and was kind of it was really weird seeing him on more of a flash initiator role when he could just be playing in the Tejo that he played the map before. Like why can't crazy guy just play the KO? I don't get it. His IGLing wasn't good anyways, so just make him play it. I mean, honestly, I don't really have much to say. Like this team again is still inconsistent. Again, can't close out games, and just I don't know how to change that really. I think you need like a top class IGL to come in here, but I don't know who you would be picking up necessarily. Then we'll talk about DFM. I really don't know what to think about this team. I thought all of the individuals looked pretty good actually. Like May, I think he was the most disappointing out of the four non-art individuals. Um, because he wasn't like absolutely taking over the game, but he was still good. Like his Yoru was a little bit passive, I think, on Pearl, but overall was pretty good. Um, and then his raise on Lotus was obviously really good as he does. Akame I thought was good. I don't think he was like elite by any means. I think the chamber was a little bit disappointing. The opping wasn't quite there. You hope he keeps improving on that and is good with that into next week. Jen, I thought continued his great performance from kickoff. Like I thought he was very impressive to me at kickoff. He was about the same here. He wasn't like an elite player by any means, but definitely a solid smokes player and better than what I expected heading into the year. And then Jinbong, I thought was really good. I think he was the most impressive out of all the individuals, especially with his Vise on Pearl. I thought that was very good. But the mid rounding and the IGLing from Art, as well as his individual play with his utility and apparent refusal to use the Odin now, especially on Lotus, that was very confusing to me. He had shown flashes in some of the games, but obviously there was a lot of bad in his IGLing, um, even in the off season that I noticed. So that's got to get better. Also, dude, this team didn't take a timeout on Pearl. I don't think, like at all. I don't know what that's about. Like, if you want to force Art to make adjustments in game, do it in scrims. Don't do it in a match that is very important against a similar caliber team. So that was weird to me. But I think they could be good, but I don't know. Also on Pearl with Akame, he wasn't really put in the best spot because they were trying to play G2's comp, but on defense they literally played him towards B long like almost every round and he would just get droned off the angle and they would stop having B long. It was definitely interesting. And then on Lotus, I think they also didn't really have a good idea of why they were playing their comp because they just could not fight for A main at all with this comp because they were playing Fade Raze, which is good. Like I'm not saying that's the bad part of the comp, but like why aren't you playing Teo? Why aren't you playing Breach? Like why are you sacrificing those agents for a Viper? I would sacrifice the Vise and play something more similar to what G2 played, where they played the the Viper as the Sentinel, with Jinbong on that role, then Jian on the Omen, then Art probably on Fade, I would assume, and then Akame on, what's it called? On Teo, or the other way around with those last two, and then Mei on Raze. That could work. Mei could play Yoru as well. They could even play something like what T1 was playing on Lotus with the ISO. I think that would be really cool with Akame playing the ISO. I think that could work really well. I don't love this team's read on how to play the game right now. Um, and yeah, it was kind of disappointing to me because I do really believe in a lot of the pieces on this roster, but it's really not coming together. Then Paper X, they started out their game by just completely diffing the DRX players on those first 8 rounds of Haven. But the second DRX won a round, it felt like Paper X just thought they had lost 8 rounds in a row and played with no confidence. All of their trading went away. They just went for a bunch of solo like hero plays and stuff, and then they ended up losing that map. Their icebox defense was kind of similar, where DRX won the first round, and then they kind of just fell apart for, I think it was 7 rounds in a row, and they kind of made it a little bit winnable with with the rest of their defense side, and then their attack side was unbelievable with that comp. I don't think that comp will work in the future, because if they pick Icebox, teams are just going to pick attack side and own them, and probably anti-strat Paper X's attack, and then what the fuck are you going to do? And then, yeah, Lotus, it was just back to throwing again, really. It just, that map was not very good at all from them. For this team, I'm just waiting for Patman to come in. I don't really believe in this roster right now. I would probably, like, a lot of discussion around this team is who you're swapping out for Patman. My pick would be Jing, pretty obviously. I think something definitely still is showing some decent mechanical stuff. I don't love him on this like Breach Sova role, but I think you could go bring in Patman, have Forsaken play the Duelist still, which I'm not enamored with. Like, this would be a temporary solution and kind of go into a full rebuild next year. But like Forsaken Duelist, Patman on like Flash Initiator / like whatever the fuck, like kind of what something was playing, but without the Sova, and then have Devi play what maybe I don't even know, like have Devi play like Flash Initiator and Sova. Like I don't know, like Devi play Teo Sova, Patman play the Flash Initiator, Mind Freak go back to Smokes, and then I would have something play Sentinel. Or make something like learn Yoru, which I think he actually could be pretty good at. But yeah, this team needs a major overhaul in this offseason, I think. And I don't think it's going to come during the regular season, because they kind of want to stick it out with this roster, which I do understand to a degree. All right, next up, in these solid teams tier, teams that I think all could kind of win some games, probably maybe make it to Toronto. Some of these teams are a little bit of a long shot. Some of them I need a little bit more information on in terms of watching them a few more times before I fully believe in them to go that far. But Talon, I have at number 7. Honestly, this is going to be a really positive conversation for a team that's going down one. I just think they kind of got passed up by a few other teams. The rookies on this team looked really good. Like, Killua looked amazing for the first 2 maps. Last map, not so great. I think it was more to do with the agent that he was playing. Maybe not getting the opportunities to look super great on that Yoru. But THYY as well, who I expected to be really good, was fine. Nothing special, but it was his first stage game, so I do expect there to be some nerves and him to probably get better for the rest of the season. Overall, though, for the rest of the team, they kind of just looked like they did at kickoff, which was kind of not what I was expecting. I expected with this team Calming and Tai now in their native language, they'd be a little bit more coordinated and maybe be able to focus on their aim a little bit more, which, I mean, to be fair, Cruz was able to do. He did look a lot better individually. The IGLing, not so much, though. It was about the same, maybe a little bit better. They did look a little bit more decisive, though, in terms of like hey, let's do this, and then they did it. Rather than a let's do this and then wait a few seconds and then they did it kind of thing. So that was good. but Primmy's Yoru on Pearl was not impressive to me at all. It looked very similar to when Demon 1 played Yoru on Pearl, where he just kind of would op B long, get droned off, and they would lose the round because they would have no map control because their only plan for B long was to have their Yoru walk up with an op and TP away if there was any danger. So, I mean, also Jitboy's Senti, I think looked fine, but there were definitely more mistakes than you would like. Like, if you compare it to like the Envy Sentinel, I think Envy looked a little bit better in that transition, which you don't love to see when Jitboys, I believe, has played Sentinel before. So, I don't know. This team's kind of weird. I think they should get better though throughout the weeks. Then Nongshim, I think these two teams were kind of where I was a little bit unsure of where to put them. Like they weren't they were pretty close together. Both of them did some trolling on certain maps. Specifically, Nongshim on their Ascent attack side was really bad. Danby playing the Waylay was so bad. But I still believe in this team. Like Danby was like full feeding. He went like 0-5 first FKD on split attack side, 1-5 on the Ascent attack side. So he was doing quite a bit of feeding on that Waylay. And they're probably going to play it again, which is not ideal. But I do think the rest of the team looked good. Persia and Ivy definitely looked really good. Margaret was pretty decent, and Francis was kind of as he always is. I've never been super impressed by Francis, but he's always been pretty solid. But to be fair, when they did get to that Pearl where Danby was playing the Neon, they did look really good. So you like to see that. I think this team is just going to be solid. I don't think they're really going to go super far necessarily because I do think some of their individuals like overheating and doing weird stuff and their weird style would kind of get potentially caught out in like a playoff scenario by better teams. So it's kind of whether that will happen or not. It kind of leaves it up to chance with this team. But I do think they are good and they have good enough firepower to make it pretty far. Then I have Global at number 6. I mean, this team looked really, really drilled. When I made my week 1 power rankings video, I was under the impression that Darion would still be playing. But with Patrick back in, I felt like their read on the meta and all of their coordination was very, very good, which I did not think about kickoff. Now, how much higher would I have had them with Patrick Who? I definitely would have had them higher. I probably would have had them maybe in that like second, or no, wait. I think I had them in the won't be bad tier, right? Where did I have, wait, I can literally look. Oh no, I had them 11th. Okay, yeah, I probably would have had them like 9th, maybe 9th, 8th, 9th, something like that. Still a very impressive performance. Udoton, though, was kind of one that I was a little bit disappointed in. Yeah, I don't know. I just didn't think he was super great in this game necessarily, but he did have some decent moments, so I'm not gonna like fully give up on him necessarily. And I mean, if anything, that's a positive for this team because he will probably be better in future games. I just didn't find him super impressive in this one, was kind of my point. Then, oh my god, boom. This team was so good. My number one issue with them coming into the split was their like firepower and their roster overall. DOS9 looked like the best smokes player in Pacific. I don't have him ranked there. Kind of not necessarily a spoiler for my thing, but like if you just rank him this week against everybody else, he probably looked like the best smokes player in the world. Famous, his opping was unbelievable. I really liked his duelist play overall. I was very high on him coming into the year in terms of like I really believed in him necessarily, but his kickoff wasn't super great. So I'm like, I kind of was backing up a little bit from that, but I'm fully back in. Berserks, who I thought was kind of a Sentinel player that like I wouldn't really be looking to pick up if I was another team. Like say Boom didn't make it, I wouldn't really be looking to pick him up. He was amazing in this game, had that insane 1v4 on Ascent. And then I think the biggest part of this team was NC Slasher, who his utility on this initiator role was so good. Specifically, I really noticed it with the tail and Ascent. His rockets were very good for denying like space on their defense side and for clearing out space on their attack side. He was very, very good at that. It was so noticeable the difference between him and Ash. And then I thought Shiro, like as an individual, wasn't super great, but I did think his read on the game was pretty good as well. So I'd like to see more of him. If this team continues this performance, they will be in the top three easily. Maybe Global will pass them up. I believe these two teams are playing, so I think the result of that game will decide it. But I just need to wait and see. And then I'll go through the top three here. This last team in the top three, because I do need to talk about Genji versus Boom here. I know this is going to be high for some people. It felt wrong to put anybody else in this number 3 spot. It still feels wrong to put Genji here after their performance in that game, but I do still believe in the talent on this team. Like they still have Texture, they still have Munchkin, they still have Charon. Obviously, their new pickups, Ash, he looked very uncomfortable on this initiator role. I have no idea why they put the roles this way. I would have put him on Sentinel, considering he's had a bunch of duelist experience, and that's kind of where duelists have been trending to, just playing that like super heavy fragging Sentinel role. But they decided to put him on a role where you need to be able to support your teammates. And then Suggest was kind of just bad. Like he was not very good in the firepower department. Maybe he was good somewhere else, but I don't know. I thought Munchkin was good individually. I mean, obviously, I talked about it before. You still have those other two guys as well with Karen and Texture. But if they're not performing at an elite level, this team isn't going to win. I don't think. Like, both Texture and Karen both had bad maps. Like, Texture had a bad Ascent, Karen had a bad Haven, and that kind of led to both their losses. So, it was a very disappointing performance from this team. If they play like that again, I very much will move them down to probably outside the top 5. But for right now, I'm going to leave them at number 3 because I don't think anybody else is really kind of fully proven that they are better than Genji quite yet. I do also just want to like talk about kind of their overall system, because Foxy9 did have a lot of issues anchoring on this team, but so did Suggest. Like, I saw people complaining about like the turret that Foxy9 would put like on top of the box to look down C long. And yeah, that was bad, but Suggest also put it down. So it's very clearly a piece of their game plan and what Genji wants to do. Also, this Haven comp is so bad. They literally have no like crosshair breaking utility. They don't have a dart. They don't have a flash. They won't have enough mollies for retake. Like, obviously, Viper, I don't think the Viper is bad on Haven, but you don't have 2 mollies. Like, you'll have the one to stall, and then if they rotate and go somewhere else, you won't have it for a retake. You really just have the Neon Wall and maybe the Teo rockets to force people out of positions, but then you still have to take dry fights and whatnot. And then you also just have the Omen Flash, which, like, on a lot of their retakes and stuff, they were kind of just sending Texture in to die and then trying to trade him out, which didn't end up working. So, I don't know. This team's read on the meta this year is very disappointing to me, and it has to get better if this team is going to get better. All right, and then for our last 2 teams for this power ranking, everybody knows what they're going to be. I think heading into the week it was pretty obvious as well. DRX at number 2. I think they looked pretty solid. I really don't think these comps are good outside of maybe the Icebox one. I thought that one was fine. Maybe could have been a little bit better. Honestly, if you had swapped there in Paper X's comps, it wouldn't be really that surprising. Obviously, the one that Paper X is running on Icebox would surprise me from DRX a little bit, but I could see it happening. Obviously, I thought they would probably like the Waylay heading in, but maybe not. I just don't think double duelist suits their style. The way that they're playing it doesn't make any sense. Or maybe not the way that they're playing it, but the fact that they are playing it in these kind of comps with like Jet Neon. Like, why not just play ISO Yoru when Yunmin was really good at it? Um, I don't know. This team would be moving down, I think, had the rest of, I mean, specifically Genji not shit themselves. So, yeah, I don't know. I think just keep Flashback on Sentinel, keep Yunmin on Duelist, solo Duelist, keep freeing on the Teo, and you'll be fine with this team. Then T1. I don't really have much to say about T1. Like, yeah, I did think they played split poorly, and I thought the rest of the maps were fine from them. This team is just going to cruise to wins pretty much against most teams here. I do think their individual skill kind of popped off on Haven. Like Izu was winning a lot of insane clutches. This guy's like unbelievable still. So very impressed with the individuals on this team. The macro wasn't super great, but honestly, I didn't think the calling was really that great when they won Bangkok. So I think they could definitely end up going to Toronto and having a good shot at winning still. All right. So to start my pickems, we'll talk about just last week. Went 4-2. Pretty happy with that. Obviously, I believed in DFM, so I was going to pick them over global, but I don't know. That didn't go the way I wanted. Then obviously, Boom's upset kind of got me there. So I'll take the L in both of those, but got the rest of them pretty good. Pretty happy with that. Now for this week, Secret Zeta. I mean, this is obviously my 11th and 12th ranked teams. I mean, we might get a toilet bowl every week with how bad some of these teams are playing. So I think that's pretty interesting. But I do think the difference in this game will be the individual firepower. And while I don't think Secrets is bad, I do think it is bad, but I don't think it's that much worse than Zeta's. I do think Zeta does have a little bit more firepower in them to kind of get them through this game. Now, if it comes down to like a late game scenario, I have no idea who's going to win because Zeta has like a bunch of young talent. Secret, they have a bunch of experienced players, but players that are experienced at choking in high pressure moments. So, not exactly sure how that will go. Should be an interesting game. Then T1 Nongshim. I think T1 should be able to win this game, kind of cruise through the rest of the season. Mostly, I don't know. I don't even remember who else they're playing, but they should be able to beat. Like, let's see. I'd have them beating Secret, obviously. I will have them beating RRQ most likely, and then I'll probably have them beating Talon as well. So yeah, they should be able to cruise through the rest of the season undefeated, up until playoffs, and then we'll most likely make Bangkok or not Bangkok, Toronto from there. So I'm gonna pick them against Nongshim. Then Genji Paper X, which I do think is a very interesting game, probably the most interesting game to most people, even though I do think there is a different game that I am definitely more interested in. But I think the big reason that I'm going to pick Paper X in this game is just Suggest's ability to anchor sites and how I think Paper X will be able to abuse that. Obviously, if you watch their Icebox, their execs are very good. On Haven, not so much. Lotus, I don't really remember specifically their execs, but I would assume those weren't that great either. But I think historically this team has been able to have some nice execs, and I think this is just a bad matchup for Genji, and Paper X will be able to kind of figure out a way to beat Genji, but I don't think it'll be an impressive game from either team. I think most likely both teams will end up moving down in my power rankings from this game. Maybe Paper X will stay put at 8 because I don't really see them moving too far down from there. Then DRX, DFM. Part of me wanted to pick DFM in this game, but I do think DRX is just too good. I think DFM could be able to exploit some of the double duelist stuff that DRX is running, but overall won't be enough to win them the game. I think DRX's macro will just be too good for DFMs, and I think their individuals are just a little bit better and more experienced right now. Then Talon, RRQ. I think, again, this is a game that'll come down to individual skill, where I think Talon does have more of it. It is pretty similar. I don't know if a weird noise just happened. I did hit my mic and it kind of wobbled. But I do think Talon and RRQ's individuals are on a similar level, but I do think I would favor Talon in a head-to-head matchup, as well as with their macro and ability to close games being significantly better, even though Talon's ability to close games is not good either. I will end up picking them over RRQ here. And then Boom GE, I had all 5 of these other games prepped for who I wanted to pick, but for this game, I had no idea. Like, on one hand, Boom played really well last week. They beat Gen G in a very impressive game from them. Their individuals looked at an insane level, and GE's did as well. But honestly, I think I'm just going to pick Boom because I do think they beat the better team in terms of my power rankings. So I'm just going to pick them there. I think that's partially why I had them higher. And yeah, I'm just going to go with my power ranking here in this game. So let me know what you guys think of my power rankings, of my predictions in the comments below. And I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.